So here's the headline. POILIEVRE promises to sue Big Pharma for $44 billion over opioid crisis. And I think that he should. Here's something you may not have known. It turns out that nearly 80% of heroin users reported using prescription opioids prior to heroin. 80% of heroin users got started with prescription medication that they didn't know was as addictive as it obviously is. Here's the website for the United States Department of Justice. This is from November 2020. It says opioid manufacturer Purdue Pharma pleads guilty to fraud and kickback conspiracies. Quote, Purdue admitted that it had marketed and sold its dangerous opioid products to healthcare providers, even though it had reason to believe those providers were diverting them to abusers. The company lied to the Drug Enforcement Administration about steps it had taken to prevent such diversion, fraudulently increasing the amount of its products it was permitted to sell. Purdue also paid kickbacks to providers to encourage them to prescribe even more of its products. So bribing doctors to prescribe this incredibly destructive and addictive drug. And I think for most people, when their doctor prescribes them something, they don't expect that the thing they're getting prescribed is going to have them, out on the street, breaking into houses in a year's time to keep getting more of it. So I think by this point, we've all learned to have our suspicions about big pharma companies, have we not? I mean, Wikipedia has a big list here of the largest pharmaceutical settlements. Here's one for $3 billion. Oh, here's one for $2.3 billion. That's Pfizer. I'm pretty sure I heard of them before. Here's Johnson & Johnson, $2.2 billion. So POILIEVRE is promising to sue big pharma companies for $44 billion if he becomes prime minister. That is not going to happen if he doesn't, because Trudeau is not going to do that. Now, Pierre is saying that that's what the pharmaceutical companies owe Canadians in healthcare costs resulting from addiction and misery. And he has pledged to become a plaintiff in a current class action suit against Big Pharma that BC has filed and is seeking $4 billion in damages. But he would seek a separate federal lawsuit as well. That would be for the $44 to $45 billion. Let's see. Now, this BC class action suit is aimed at recovering costs that, quote, resulted from wrongful conduct of opioid manufacturers, distributors, and their consultants. And let's see. And they've just named Purdue, Canada, maker of OxyContin, as just one of the 40 companies targeted in the suit. Well, Purdue, those are the guys that have their own page on the United States Department of Justice website. But anyway, POILIEVRE said Tuesday that the BC legal action does not go far enough, and a conservative government would extend it much further. He says the people who profited from this misery should be the ones to pay the bill. And let's keep in mind here that the reason why they should do this is because they deceived the public, and they deceived healthcare regulators about their products. That is why they should be liable. Quote, Trudeau has done nothing to hold these powerful pharmaceutical companies accountable. A POILIEVRE government will hold them accountable. Well, Trudeau probably goes on vacation with the executives from these companies. Now, POILIEVRE has also said that the NDP/liberal approach has failed. Because what have they been doing? Well, they've been going with the harm reduction, quote unquote, harm reduction strategy, like safe injection sites, loosening law enforcement, essentially decriminalizing hard drug use in British Columbia, to the point now where Trudeau has allowed BC to actually decriminalize drugs like cocaine and meth in amounts for personal consumption. This is all called harm reduction. Let's take a look at this graph of illicit drug toxicity deaths in BC. Now, 2003 was the first year they had safe injection sites. And as you can see, zero improvement whatsoever. And 06 is when they started really in earnest with the harm reduction, so-called harm reduction strategy. And as you can see, certainly no improvement, and then a gradual increase leading to a sudden rapid increase. How many overdose deaths were there in 2003? 190. How many were there in 2022? 2,272. But let's go well before the pandemic. Let's go from 2003 to just 10 years into the future. 190 deaths to 334, to 369, to 529, to 994. That's in 2016. That's what they call harm reduction. And I guess the mental health and addictions minister hasn't seen this graph because she's called Poilievre's comments about the injection sites, the safe injection sites, quote, irresponsible and misguided, and suggested it's all just irresponsible populist nonsense. Irresponsible populist nonsense. You know what I think is irresponsible? Your strategy for harm reduction took overdose deaths from 190 to 2,272. I mean, wouldn't you call that irresponsible and misguided? And here's the thing, in British Columbia, very left-wing province, NDP is a left-wing party. Her rhetoric has been the populist nonsense in British Columbia. And here's the thing. You know that she knows these numbers. Doesn't care. Because it's not about that. It's about never admitting that you're wrong. Now, Poilievre has of late been advocating for treatment. Treatment instead of harm reduction. So getting people off the streets and into treatment. Because at least that way they've got a chance. Because if this graph proves anything, progressivism hasn't worked. Unless it's progressively more death. But I guess if there was any question, we now know for sure who the pharma companies will be rooting for in the next election. And it's not going to be Pierre. Anyway, please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.